Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Healing Unfiltered podcast. You'll have to excuse my voice. I went to a dueling piano bar over the weekend and sang at the top of my lungs for hours on end with my best friend. So my voice, even 3 days later, is still recovering. So it sounds a little off. It sounds a little different, but we're just going to roll with it. If you listen regularly when my episodes drop, you will notice that this episode is coming out on a Wednesday instead of a Monday. And this kind of inspired my topic for today because life has just been all over the place lately. And I'll get into that in a second. But it had me thinking, like, I had a crazy week last week due to some personal things going on. And I was like, when am I going to record? I usually like to be ahead of schedule on recording, but August has been insane personally. And so I have gotten so behind on recording and I have been recording week to week, which is normally not the case. Normally I like to batch like 2 or 3 episodes, schedule them out. And so I'm ready to go. Like I'm recording for weeks ahead. But because of the circumstances of life, that did not happen this time. And last week, I had a crazy week and I was racking my brain trying to figure out when am I going to record? I got to get this episode out on Monday. I can't miss a Monday. I can't miss a week. And there were certain things that popped up that were more important, to be honest, like were way more important to my personal life, my family, my friends, myself. And I had this moment where I was like, fuck that. Like, why am I chasing perfection? Why am I trying to run myself ragged to get something out on a certain time when this is something I love to do? This should not be something that has pressure to it. So my topic for today is basically, this is going to be my hot topic episode for September, a couple days late. The episode's basically fuck perfection, kind of fuck hustle culture. And I'll get into that into a second. I don't mean that to like the nth degree where I'm saying like, don't work hard and hustle for what you want or, make your dreams come true or any of that. But to the extent that it is, I do think we kind of need to say fuck hustle culture because I think that it is creating such mental stress for things that we love and puts pressure on us in a way that takes us away from things that we love also. So I'll share a little bit about kind of what's been going on. August has been terrible. We lost my father-in-law at the beginning of the month. He was battling cancer, had a few other health concerns. So that's what started off August for us. And then a few weeks into August, we found out that our dog has cancer. And so the reason last week was so crazy is because we unfortunately had to make the decision to say goodbye to our dog, who was my shadow. Like I could not take 10 steps without him right behind me. And I'm in my home office and I'm looking at my door right now. He would lay right outside my door and his little ear would like poke under the door without fail whenever I was in session or recording or doing something where my door needed to be closed. There could be like my husband could be grilling steaks outside or cooking something delicious in the kitchen that normally he would be begging for. And it didn't matter if I was behind this closed door. He was laying right outside that door with his ear under my door. So for context, August has been full of not just like personal stress, but grief and loss. And like I said before, things that are just so much more important in the grand scheme of things than getting my podcast recorded. And it had me thinking, I had this moment where I was like, fuck, I'm not going to get it recorded. It's not going to come out. And I felt like, well, shit, like there goes my streak of every Monday having an episode out. And I sat back and I was like, who cares? Like who really cares in the grand scheme of things? My family is more important. Grieving is more important. The loss of people, animals, concepts or like routines even in our lives that mean so much to us. Those things are so much more important. Why am I running myself ragged trying to get something done that will get done eventually? I'm not just going to say, well, screw it all. I'm done with the podcast now. Like that's so ridiculous. So I had this moment where I was planning to record on Friday and the opportunity came up. We said goodbye to our dog on Thursday. The opportunity came up Friday for my husband to go golfing with my dad and for me to spend time at my parents' ground with my mom and my daughter. And I was like, okay, I'll record Saturday then. I'll push it off. I'll record Saturday. I'll get it out Monday. I'll get up really early and I'll record. And I was like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity to spend time with my family. Okay, fine, great. Saturday came. My best friend who lives in Minneapolis was in town for a sand volleyball tournament in the city in Chicago, near where I live. And I was like, okay, I'll get up really early and I'll record my episode before I go down to the city. And that came and I was like, no, Like, that sounds miserable. Why would I do that? And then Sunday came and we had the opportunity to spend time together as a family and then to have friends over. And I just kind of was like, you know what? These things, like I said, are more important right now. These things, spending time with the people that I love, being around people that support me in my grief or, grieving with my family, that's way more important right now. So let me take it away from myself for a second and put it out into the bigger picture of life and mental health. When we go through shit, there is this societal pressure to jump right back into life. And whether that's grieving the loss of a loved one or a pet or losing a job or getting sick yourself, there's this pressure to jump right back into normal life ASAP. And what's really annoying about this is there's kind of this like social, like it's socially acceptable, or I should say this, it's not socially acceptable to be like, get right back to it, but that's the underlying message. So, what I mean by that is we have people saying to us, take time to grieve, do what you have to do. Like, don't worry about anything but yourself. Like, that's what they're telling us. But then the bigger societal environment is the opposite. It's saying, nope, you got to get right back to it. And I think that this contradiction is so confusing because when people talk with us, they're like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? You just had a terrible cold, even you were just sick, or you just lost a loved one, and take your time, do what you need. But then the next week we're back at work. And I think that this routine that we've kind of gotten ourselves in from society, this is where I'm going to jump to the fuck hustle culture mentality, because hustle culture is what creates that environment. I don't think that when people are telling us take time for yourself and do what you got to do, I don't think that they're lying. I think that they genuinely are like, no, fuck everything else and do what you need to do for yourself. But the ingrained message from society is hustle, go, get back to it. And even when we cope a lot of times. Like I was thinking about this past weekend for myself, and I was like, wow, I really distracted myself a lot this weekend. I grieved. I faced what I had to face. I felt what I had to feel, but I also really distracted myself. And I think that when we look at that, hustle culture kind of gives us this opportunity to distract with the wrong things. Distract with loved ones, distract with doing your favorite things. Why are we distracting ourselves with jumping right back into work? Why are we distracting ourselves with being so overly productive that anything emotional gets all the way shoved down? So the difference, I think, with distracting with things you enjoy, that's an emotional experience. And it's usually more of a positive emotional experience. It's like comforting, rewarding. There's moments of joy. It gives you a sense of safety. When we distract with work, that's such a logical or more, like I said before, productive means of distracting. And really the only emotion that comes from it majority of the times is stress. So I think that when we look at hustle culture, we have to acknowledge the fact that it is breeding this, I don't know, environment where we aren't able to truly focus on what is important. I was having a conversation with my husband, who is a notorious workaholic. He's really worked hard on it. He's gotten a lot better at, kind of like zooming out and not getting so sucked into work. But we were having conversations amidst all of the grief that we have going on. And we just were saying to each other, like, what is the most important thing right now? We both have emails flying in. We both have things that we need to handle, to-do lists that we need to conquer. But what is the most important thing right now? And both of us were like, each other, our daughter, our family, our grief. Like, the most important thing right now is not that list of things to do. It's not the emails flying in. It might be important to the people sending the email. On a completely different day, you might ask yourself that question. It might be, yeah, this is the most important thing right now. But in this moment, it's not. And so I think that my hot take when we're looking at this is truly like, who gives a fuck if you miss a deadline when you're grieving? Who gives a fuck if you don't work out on a day that you are struggling with depression? Like, who cares? You're not meant to be perfect. And the more and more that we push this perfectionism down each other's throats, our own throats, whatever it is, wherever the pressure is coming from, the more and more that we're going to miss out on the reality of the fact that what is actually important in life is fulfillment, and not just fulfillment in productivity. And this is where, like I said, I'm not saying fuck hustle culture to the nth degree. I'm saying we need balance, because yes, there is so much meaning that comes from being productive and having a career that is sustainable and fulfilling. Like, there is fulfillment that comes from that, but that's not the only thing. And I think that so much pressure is put on us to be perfect, to hustle, to reach the next level. And sometimes it's okay to just be where you're at. So I think what I want people to take from this episode in particular is when you're having a moment where you really got to do the thing, you really have to show up, you really have to hit that deadline, you really have to release that podcast episode. It's okay to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the most important thing in this moment? Sometimes the answer will be get off your ass and do the thing on your to-do list. Sometimes the answer will be screw it. You'll be okay if you don't hit that deadline. You'll be okay if you don't work out today. You'll be okay if you don't show up to whatever friend's birthday party. I think that we really need to zoom out and get more grounded in the moment of what's the reality of this moment right here. And this is where it's really important to be able to be self-aware and be honest with ourselves. Because the next step of this that we have to acknowledge is we can't just use it as an excuse. We can't go to the side of like, oh, well, this feels most important right now. We need to be really honest with ourselves and acknowledge like what is a typical day for me and how far off of that typical day am I? And how do I get myself back to like being grounded in what's going on in this moment right now? When we're looking at that, that's where I think we can offer ourselves so much freedom, because if we're being really honest with ourselves, majority of days will be the most important thing is to get my to-do list done. The most important thing is to get up and move my body or fuel my body, or the most important thing is to go to my therapy session. Most important thing is to show up to work and hit my deadlines. That's going to be the majority of the days. But there are going to be days where you ask yourself that question of what is the most important thing to me right now? And it's not going to be anything on your to-do list. It's going to be the most important thing in this moment is taking care of myself. And some people might not agree with that. Some people might say, no, you need to stay committed. You need to stay dedicated. But I think the problem with that is it implies that by taking a day where I say, you know what, I normally don't miss deadlines, but today I'm gonna, it's implying that like you're not dedicated or you're not committed if you don't do this one thing one time. I think that's where, like I said earlier, if I miss this deadline for this podcast on Monday, it's not like I'm going to go to the other end and be like, well, that's it. That was a good run for the podcast. Sorry, guys. That was it. That's all you get from me. Like, I'm still dedicated to it. I'm still committed to it. I just had other things that were more important going on. And I think we need to realize that for ourselves too. So what I would love for you guys to do is reflect on wherever you're at in life and zoom out and look at what is the most important thing right now. And I think that we need to ask ourselves this question on normal days too. This isn't something that we just ask ourselves when we're going through tough shit. I think we need to get better about, again, building that self-awareness and building that honesty with ourselves of like, on a typical day when I'm feeling really lazy, okay, what's most important right now? Probably not laying around. It's probably getting up and going to work or doing the thing or whatever. And this is where, again, from the mental health side of things, we can build that awareness of maybe you have a day where you're laying in bed, your depression's really bad, your anxiety's really bad, your executive functioning is just not there. And you ask yourself what's most important. And maybe you can acknowledge like, okay, what's most important is my to-do list. What's most important is taking a shower. Why can't I do that? So this is where I've probably said this a million times on this podcast and even in my sessions with my clients, but we have to scale it back. So maybe we're not capable of doing the thing that we know is the most important, but let's scale it back to then learn more about why. What am I struggling with? What do I need help with? And what is a step that I can take? And in those moments on the typical days, if we can build that awareness in ourselves, we are also building trust in ourselves to recognize these moments where we can say, you know what, my to-do list isn't the most important thing right now. What's most important is grieving, laying in bed, getting over this cold, fill in the blank with whatever it is. I think sometimes we're worried about like going down that slippery slope of falling into excuses and kind of always erring on that side of making excuses for not doing the things that we need to do. And the thing is, if we build confidence in ourselves, if we build trust within ourselves that we will follow through when it comes time to follow through, then we won't worry about going down that slippery slope because we will know that our foundation is based in, bottom line, doing the thing that is most important in that moment. And if we can trust ourselves to recognize what that thing is, then where can you go wrong? Because you might have one day where the most important thing is to say, screw your to-do list, but you can know that, okay, that's one day. I know that next week I'm going to pick it back up and I'm going to get back on board. But I think a lot of times we function out of fear of, again, going down that slippery slope or making excuses or what are people going to think? And then we also fall into that trap of like, I need to be perfect. I need to maintain this because if I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough. And that's just not true. And a lot of what I'm saying, kind of going back to when people tell us you got to do what's best for you. And I believe that they believe that when they say that. This whole topic is an example of it's so much easier to say this to somebody else than to say this to ourselves. If somebody told me they were in the exact same position that I have been in this month, I would absolutely be like, dude, don't worry about any of that stuff. Like, you have to put yourself first. But sure as shit, when it came time for me to do that for myself, it was hard. I had to really take a minute to be like, is this okay? Do I have permission to do this? Like, am I going to let some people down? And, you run down the list of things that might hold you back from doing what's best for you. But we have to start to treat ourselves the way that we treat other people. We have to believe what we say to ourselves the way that we believe it when we say it to other people. And I think that's the part that has us so twisted from this hustle culture is we can still have a hustle culture while being kind to ourselves, while being compassionate to ourselves, and while giving ourselves a fucking break when life is hard. And life can be hard for a number of reasons. It can be hard because of grief, like my month has been. It can be hard because of mental health issues that you've dealt with for however long. It can be hard because work is stressful. Life is hard for a number of reasons. And so if we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge that life is hard, what is going to happen is we are going to go, 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 go. And we're going to hit a wall and then we're going to crash and then we're going to feel like even more shit about ourselves. So takeaways from this short and sweet hot take episode. Please start asking yourself what is most important in this moment and do it literally obnoxiously. Like at 9:30 at night when you're scrolling through TikTok, okay, what's most important in this moment? Is scrolling through TikTok most important or is getting some good sleep most important? When you wake up in the morning, what's most important right now? Maybe it's enjoying a cup of coffee before I start my day, right? So like do it with every single thing you possibly can because even if it feels obnoxious, even if it feels like the answer is obvious, one, you're probably going to start engaging in better habits. Two, you're building trust in yourself to not only follow through, but you're building trust in yourself that you know what is best for you. And that is the bottom line. Just figure out what is most important to you and do those things. And not in the realm of making excuses for yourself, but more so just honoring yourself. I think that's what it comes down to. We can look at it like, well, I'm going to take today off. I'm not going to do XYZ thing. And I'm making excuses because I'm going through whatever thing in life. Or we can look at it as like, you know what? I trust myself to know what is best for me. And instead of pushing through, instead of doing something that is not aligned with where I'm at in this moment, I'm going to honor myself and honor what I know is best for me because I've built that trust in myself. So there's my short and sweet hot take episode. I'm going to be back into a normal routine next week. Monday episodes coming out. Please let me know how this resonated with you. If it prompted any other questions or thoughts or topics. This was a no notes episode. This was just me kind of talking at you guys. So I would love to take this topic and see where we can run with it and kind of get maybe into more of a concrete area. If you guys have any thoughts or any questions or reactions to this, I would love to keep this conversation going because I think it really is a foundational one when it comes to mental health and just life in general. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thanks for listening. As always, please leave a comment, a rating, a review. Share this with somebody that you think it might help. And I will be back next week with another new episode. See you then.